In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I painted this robot ceramic sculpture. So I made this robot sculpture inside of my Ceramics 4 class. I did this at my local community college. I've since graduated. I've talked about my that in the past videos, but in this video I'm going to be talking about my process and how I painted this. So for this sculpture, it's actually in two pieces, and you'll see my entire process in this video from start to finish. I used acrylic paint instead of glaze, even though it's a cone 5 ceramic clay. I didn't fire it to cone 5. I bisque fired it, which was cone 05 temperature. It's a very low firing, and so that makes the clay very. It's not vitrified yet, so it's very absorbent. Vitrified means that the clay is not absorbent anymore. It's totally sealed, and that's what happens when you fire ceramic clay up to the temperature it's meant to be fired at. So for example, this clay was supposed to be fired at cone 5 for finished vitrified results, but I only bisque fired it, and then I painted with acrylic paint, so it's very porous. So I started off, as I do with every sculpture, with a wash. So I did a dark blackish gray watered down acrylic paint, and I washed the entire sculpture just so I can get some color down on the canvas. That bright white ceramic clay is not a good surface, and it's very contrasting to any color you lay down. So color theory with the colors that I wanted to do, it was always going to look off and too dark, so it was going to mess me up if I didn't add any color down to the canvas. So I started off with a black gray. Then I went ahead and I painted part of the sculpture white, which it was a mistake. I'll admit it was a mistake. So painting it white, my intentions was when I sand down, which you'll see me do in a little bit, sand down to the acrylic paint that I'm layering on here. Once I sand it down, I'll be able to see white underneath. Well, I didn't want to see white anymore, and I changed my mind, so I ended up just sanding it down to the bare clay, and when I grinded it down with the sandpaper and roughed it all up, all the textured surface, you could see the bare clay underneath. And then I went ahead, and you'll see that I did another wash over it, and what happened is that because the clay is not vitrified, and because the clay was so porous, and once it was dry and revealed after I sanded off the layer of acrylic paint, the blue acrylic paint that I just laid down, it made it so I can paint the clay underneath darker gray, which I really liked. Made it look like metal that was rusty paint and paint falling off of it, which brings me to my prompt of why am I even painting this blue? What is this color I'm painting, you might ask? Well, I went with this blue color because this is the color of Amazon Prime. Amazon's logo is this color. I try to color match as close as I can to the Amazon Prime logo. And that brings me to the sculpture of why I made this robot. So, inside my Ceramics 4 class, we had to make a trophy. Very weird prompt, so we had to just make a trophy, and my trophy was called the World's Best Employee, or like, the Employee of the Month award for Amazon Prime, but in 100 years from now. And so I wanted to make a modified human, almost like Amazon's found that humans are not efficient enough for them, and kind of like they're making robots today to do their work and replacing human jobs. And so I'm thinking 100 years in the future, what might someone working an Amazon Prime job look like? And so it kind of might show what's a possible future. I don't know. We'll never know, I guess. So 100 years from now, this is what I interpret a Amazon Prime worker to be looking like. And no, this sculpture is not complete. You'll see the robot is done in this video, but I will be making probably another video in the future of me making I want to make some cardboard boxes, and I want to make a whole finished platform that this guy stands on. And you'll see the platform that I showed in the beginning of the video and in the reveal at the end of the video. That was actually made out of polymer clay, which was for a previous sculpture that I've done in the past. So as you can see here, this is after I laid down the thick layer of blue acrylic paint, and I also did some yellow acrylic paint for like a caution paint, black and yellow stripes and caution tape, and I wanted to paint that on some of the sculptures just to fully immerse the theme that I was getting across, very factory production, and I also added the logo, Amazon Prime logo too. But as you see here, I have my two parts. I have the legs, and then I have a tube, which is not ceramic. I wish it was, but it's not ceramic. And then the top piece, which is, obviously the head and the body and the arms. So I ended up painting, once the blue had dried and I had sanded it off, I ended up painting another wash, as I had mentioned, to dirty up the sculpture and continually push the metal look and the rusted paint as I was going for. After looking back on the sculpture and looking at it now, I am very happy with the way the surface work came out and the way that I sanded down the surface and roughed it all up, and then now it looks like rusted metal, and it looks actually like wear and tear on like a real, what I would think what a real robot might look look like. And so I'm super happy with the way the paint job came out and the colors that were used. I think it looks really nice. But I have talked about this in a past video and discussed some controversy of using acrylic paint on ceramic work. And I still think that I get the result I want, and if that's the case, then I can use. I think it's fine to use acrylic paint on ceramic work. Going into the future, though, I will try to push myself to use more underglazes. But one struggle I did have is the acrylic paint dries really fast. I love oil paint for the fact that you can blend about a week later if you really wanted to. If the paint was thick enough and it didn't dry and the conditions were right, you can still blend two colors together a week later because they weren't dry yet. But with acrylic paint, that's not the case. You have less than 3 minutes before the acrylic paint dries. And even on this surface, the acrylic paint was drying insanely fast, so it made it quite difficult to paint. And then I did a employee ID number with a heartbeat monitor on the back of the sculpture, and the human head is the only thing peeking out and the only thing human left of this employee. So yeah, that's kind of the lore behind the sculpture, but I quite like the idea of it. I think it looks pretty cool. Oh, and then to hold the sculpture upright, because the tube is just a plastic tube, I scrounged this off a vacuum. Actually, it was a vacuum tube that was abandoned, and I felt that it fit the torso pretty well of this piece. But to keep it up, I used two pieces of wood, and then I glued them on the inside of the sculpture, so then he's nice and stable, which worked great. Like I had mentioned, this bottom piece for the sculpture was used for my D&D character that I've sculpted in the past, and that doesn't go to the sculpture, but I felt like it fit pretty well, actually, conveniently. But I really enjoyed painting the sculpture. I hope this inspired you in some way, and I thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of the sculpture in the comments below, and if you have any suggestions, let me know. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.